Golly Moses, She's a Muffin is the 19th episode of the third season of Two and a Half Men. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's definitely a very interesting episode. I think it's very unpredictable in a lot of ways. I've seen this episode, well, many times before, but not in a very long time, and I'd kind of forgotten how things ended up, and there were some things that I hadn't expected. It starts off in the kitchen with Berta, and Charlie's there, and Alan's there, and then Kandi comes in, and then she's off to the gym. And Charlie remarks that if Alan's not careful, Kandi's going to end up moving in. And Alan points out that Kandi had been living there for several weeks now. This comes after, I think, in the previous episode, where we find out that Kandi has to leave her apartment, and now she is living with Alan. And throughout the episode, Charlie is occasionally quite concerned that his furniture is not the furniture that he bought, and my powers of observation are not great, because Alan asked Charlie to name the colour of the sofa, and he couldn't do it. And I couldn't do it either. So no brownie points for me there at all. Kandi then comes into the kitchen a little while later. She's comparing both of the brothers. I'd actually kind of forgotten that Kandi was one of Charlie's dates, for want of a better word. So that was a little bit awkward for Charlie. And then things get a little bit more awkward, but also something that I think was really important as well, because Judith drops Jake off and Candi's wearing not a lot of clothing, and Judith tells Kandi, I don't think that outfit is appropriate for Jake. And Kandi agreed because it would look a little bit silly on Jake. And I actually loved that. Yes, obviously there are outfits that are more appropriate to wear around children. Jake's getting older now. But it is a good point that it's Kandi who's wearing it, not Jake. And she has clothes on at the very least. So actually I thought Kandi's remark, even though I don't think she was trying to be clever, I think that's genuinely what she thought Judith meant, I actually rather enjoyed it. We then have this really well-written dinner conversation, and there wasn't anything specific about it that I thought worthy of note, but the whole thing just flowed really well. It just went from kind of one negative point to another. Alan ended up saying no dinner conversation, and it went really well. Well, for me as a viewer, I enjoyed it. It didn't quite go well for Alan. And then Charlie ends up asking, when is Kandi moving out? And Alan says that actually it might not be that long because he's got her a job. And it turns out he's hired her as the receptionist at his chiropractor's. And immediately after saying that, Kandi demonstrates that she can't actually answer a phone. And we then cut immediately to after her first shift at the chiropractor's, and she and Alan come into the house fighting. And it's a little bit different. We don't normally see them reacting to each other in that way. And then Judith calls, and this time Kandi can actually answer the phone eventually. And she ends up having a conversation with Judith, and she then goes off to meet Judith. And the next thing we know, they come into the house laughing, and they're very drunk. And Kandi's no longer wanting to stay with Alan. Judith helps her pack her things, and Kandi's going to be staying with her. That's definitely not what Alan wants. His current girlfriend living with his ex-wife, and it definitely is a recipe for disaster. And then things end on a bit of a cliffhanger, because there's a knock at the door, and Charlie answers, and it's a woman called Mandi, played by Gail O'Grady, and it's Kandi's mother. And Charlie invites her in. He excitedly tells Berta his dry spell is over. Clearly he's wanting to sleep with Kandi's mother. Let us not forget that earlier in the episode we were reminded that Charlie had also slept with Kandi. And the bit that I loved is when Berta, she's kind of got her back to the camera to begin with, and when Charlie says this, she just kind of pops up and says, what am I supposed to do with this pie? She was baking a pie for Charlie to take to the prison. Clearly that wasn't going to go according to plan, but I rather enjoyed Berta's little query there. And it's an interesting ending, and I can't remember the next episode. I can't remember exactly how it plays out, so I am looking forward to rediscovering that. I don't know how I feel about Kandi. I think April Bowlby does an amazing job with the character. I think she's a very well-written character. I think that her costumes are always amazing. She always has a lot of really brightly coloured, eye-catching outfits. And I like how she makes Alan happy, but at the same time, there's something about her that I find really irritating. I don't know how I feel about her, and I don't know if I've ever known how I feel about her either. But either way, this is a pretty interesting episode that I think is definitely really unpredictable. Golly Moses is a fun episode with some pretty good moments, and I'm looking forward to watching the next one.